The SR-71 Blackbird, the world's fastest stealth spy plane. It flew faster than a rifle bullet. 3 times the speed of sound.
It looks like it's part spaceship, part airplane. And when you see it in the air, it's a piece of artwork.
Even now, 50 years later, it's still the fastest and highest man has ever flown without rocket propulsion.
The Blackbird is the iconic aircraft of high-speed supersonic cruise.
It was a multi-million-dollar gamble that stretched 60s aviation technology to the limits.
Incredibly forward-thinking design on this. No high-powered, computers. Just rooms of people with slide rules and calculators.
The thing that's special about the Blackbird was it was all miracles.
Blackbird pilots risked their lives to fly at the edge of the possible.
It was just breathtaking when we realized what we were going to be doing.
These basically became sentinels, if you will, for the free world.
Its greatest legacy, helping maintain peace when the world was on the brink of nuclear war. January 1966. 2 ace test pilots prepare for a critical experimental flight. The plane they're about to fly is an ultra-fast covert military jet, and it's just been modified to maximize performance. In the cockpit is a pilot with 4,000 flying hours under his belt, Bill Weaver.
We took off about 11 something in the morning. We headed out on the programmed route. Everything was okay, routine.
In the back seat is reconnaissance expert Jim Zweyer.
Copy that.
Flying at Mach 3.2, Weaver banks into a turn. And without warning, one of his engines stalls.
It's a very startling event. You could never prepare yourself for them. It was once described by one of the pilots as like being in a train wreck.
At over 3,000 kilometers an hour, the unbalanced plane is impossible to control. It pitches into a catastrophically steep climb.
I had to stick full left corner of the cockpit and no response to the airplane at all. I knew that we were just going to be along for the ride when that happened.
Inside 2 seconds, the plane starts to break up.
The airplane just basically disintegrated around us.
The quest to build the world's fastest spy plane is on the edge of disaster. The story of the SR-71 Blackbird begins 9 years earlier, at the height of the Cold War. In 1957, the Soviet Union develops intercontinental ballistic missiles.
Here, Khrushchev boasts that Russia already has intercontinental missiles in mass production.
The threat of a direct nuclear strike on US cities makes gathering intelligence on the Soviets' nuclear arsenal a top priority.
Well, in any conflict, knowledge is power. And we had to find out what the Soviet Union was doing, particularly with their missile program.
We had a vital need to understand the capabilities of the Soviet military machine, but the Soviet Union was so vast that we could not gain this by using conventional aircraft.
America needs specialist spy planes to fly reconnaissance missions deep into Soviet territory. Without being detected by radar and shot down by enemy jets. In late 1957, the CIA asks defense contractor Lockheed to come up with a new undetectable spy in the sky. They would call it Project Archangel, led by aviation genius Kelly Johnson.
Kelly Johnson undoubtedly is the Leonardo da Vinci of aviation design.
The difference in him and other airplane designers is he had a vision of the future and the art of the possible.
I had a great relationship with him. Yeah, I trusted him. He was almost a father figure to me.
Johnson had worked for Lockheed since 1933. He'd put together a small maverick design team just outside Los Angeles, nicknamed the Skunk Works. Johnson's team had designed several military planes, including a supersonic jet fighter, the iconic Lockheed F-104 Starfighter. By the late 50s, Skunk Works was at the top of its game.
The factor that makes the Skunk Works different than other airplane design organizations is that they assume it can be done and then figure out how to do it.
Back in 1955, Kelly Johnson had created America's first plane specifically designed for spying. The U-2 was a single-engine jet plane that could fly at altitudes of 20,000 meters, which according to US intelligence was 1,500 meters above the reach of Soviet radar.
The idea behind the U-2 was to fly so high that the very sophisticated Russian radars would not be able to detect it.
In 1956, the U-2 flew its first operational mission over Soviet territory. It returned safely with valuable intelligence. But the onboard device the plane carried to detect radar waves delivered some bad news. Soviet radar had tracked its every move.
From our estimates, if the U-2 were to fly above a certain altitude, it could not be detected. The problem is we were wrong. The Soviet radars were better than we thought they were.
The only comfort was that the Soviets had no means of downing the U-2 at this altitude. Yet. The Skunk Works team knew it was only a matter of time before Russian missile technology would catch up, with disastrous consequences. They would have to deliver the new undetectable spy in the sky, and fast. "50 years after it was built, the SR-71 Blackbird still holds the record as the world's fastest manned plane using air-breathing engines.
The amazing thing about the Blackbird is that it instills emotion in anyone, not just airplane enthusiasts. It looks like it's part spaceship, part airplane. And when you see it in the air, it's a piece of artwork.
Even more extraordinary, it pioneered the idea of stealth technology, with a design that was almost impossible for enemy radar to detect. But reaching this pinnacle of aviation technology wasn't easy. In the spring of 1958, Skunk Works starts work on Project Archangel. the CIA's top-secret plan to replace the vulnerable U-2 spy plane. Kelly Johnson knows the new design will have to fly much higher than its predecessor to evade advancing Soviet radar systems. And also much faster to get out of trouble even if detected.
As the missile threat evolved, speed now became very, very important. And so if you have a fast-moving target that may be also turning or maneuvering itself, it poses a very difficult challenge to an intercepting missile.